All right, today's lesson is a continuation from yesterday. It's still 4-6, but it's completing the square. Straight up, it is hard. It is one of the hardest things you're going to do in Algebra 2. I need you to focus, and I need you to pay attention to the entire period. You cannot be in la-la land. You cannot zone out at any time. I need you with me and participating the whole time. Okay? Now, completing the square. It's used to find the vertex, it's used to factor, and it's used to find the x-intercepts. The first thing you need to know. We are going to be focusing on finding the vertex and finding the x-intercepts today. That's our two goals, okay? Now, when I say an x-intercept, your brain needs to think the ordered pair x, 0. Why is the y value 0 if I'm talking about an x-intercept? Because if my arms held out horizontally here are the x-axis, and I want to know where the graph crosses my arms, that means there's no height, is there? That means your y is 0 every time. That's what an x-intercept means. Okay? Now, when do you use the completing the square method? When your degree is equal to 2. Now, I'm going to be super honest. Completing the square is 0 fun for you guys. It's immense fun for me. But it is a very difficult concept. There are two types of solutions that you're going to have. You will have rational solutions and irrational solutions. Now, let me make myself very clear about this. If you have rational solutions, you should have factored that problem. You should have factored it into two binomials and set each parenthesis equal to 0 and solved it. A rational number is a number in the form of a fraction. 1, 1/2, 1/3, 2/3, 5,352 divided by 3. Okay? Those are all examples of rational numbers where if you would have factored correctly, you would have obtained the correct answers. Now, can you complete the square? Absolutely. Irrational answers are where you're either going to have to use the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Who's ever heard that? I didn't hear that. But you've heard of the quadratic formula, right? We're going to do that after this because it's easier than completing the square. But today we are going to learn how to complete the square. CTS, complete the square. When I use the word complete the square, you should think, oh, I'm going to have irrational answers. Well, what's an irrational answer? Something that has a square root in it. Now, could you have rational answers by completing the square? Yes, but you should have probably factored to get that answer because it would have been much faster. Now, another word I want you to make sure that your brain has understood and remembered is leading coefficient. That is the number in front of the x squared. You know what that value is? It is your a value. It is your a value. Now, on your notes, I had a couple mistakes on the next page that I want to make sure that you guys correct on your notes. So stay with me and make sure that you get this. All right, steps to completing the square. I cannot tell you enough how important it is to follow these steps. Step 1, I need you to take your constant term over to the other side. Well, what is a constant term? Here is your formula, ax squared plus bx plus c. What is your constant in that formula? C is your constant. Your constant is the number without a variable. Your constant is the number without a variable. Okay? Step 2, you then are going to check your a value. If your a value is 1, it's beautiful, you're good to go, you don't have to worry about it. But if your a value is not 1, and there is a stretch, meaning it is above 1, or a compressed, meaning it's a fraction, then you have to factor it out. And if you factor out your leading coefficient, you are doing this by division. So if your a value is not 1, you have to factor it out by doing division. Okay? This is that GCF concept. You with me? It's that GCF concept. Now, you are going to take the coefficient of the b value. Please correct this in your notes. It accidentally says a value. You need to change that to b value. Yesterday's homework assignment, we learned how to take b divided by 2 and square it. Do you remember that? Step 3 is your b divided by 2. Step 4 is squaring that. This is your b divided by 2 squared. Now, here's what I want you to make sure that you're doing. You are going to add that, but adding b divided by 2 squared to both sides, but you're going to make sure you multiply it by a. And I'll explain why, because we're going to work on the inside of the parentheses here, okay? Your last step is to rewrite this x side as x plus b divided by 2 squared, which is what we learned yesterday, okay? Now, there is no easy way to do this, guys. You simply have to jump in and you just got to simplify, okay? So here we go. This is exactly like your homework. And I'm going to be super honest. We are doing 4 problems. 2 of those 4 problems like this are from your homework. So I am doing homework problems for you. It's your job to determine which ones are homework problems and which ones are not. I will not tell you. The directions on tonight's homework says to solve each quadratic equation by completing the square. What does that mean? When it uses the word solve, what that means is you want to find the x-intercepts. And x-intercept is the form x comma 0. So your goal is to solve for x and get ordered pairs in the form of x comma 0. I'm good. Are you good? Now, step 1. Here are the steps on the board. You have them in your notes, but I also put them on the board so that you can constantly see them. Yes. You can. Okay, you can. So step 1, what do I want to do first? I want to think constant terms. So I need to take my constant term over to the other side of the equation. So what am I going to do here? Subtract 2. There we go. X squared plus 4x is equal to negative 2. Step 2, what does it need to be? It says to check your a value. For a value, we really want it to be 1. What is my current a value? So I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about doing any division, do I? So step 3, what's step 3 say to do out there? Do your sidebar. What sidebar? Sidebar is going to be that lovely b divided by 2 concept that we learned yesterday. What is b in this problem? 4 divided by 2 is, squared is 4. Now, you know what we're going to do with that 4? We are going to add the b over 2 squared to both sides of the equation, because what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other to keep the scales balanced, correct? So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals negative 2 plus 4. I added 4 units on one side, so I have to add 4 units to the other side. Do we all understand that? Okay. Next is the last step, which is to rewrite the x side. So how do I rewrite this x side? What do these 3 terms turn into? What perfect squared binomial? This is what we learned yesterday. It is going to be x plus 2 quantity squared is equal to, what's negative 2 plus 4? 2. Now, what is our goal? What did the directions say on this problem? To solve to find the x-intercept. So if I'm solving, this is what we learned yesterday at the top of our homework assignment. How do I solve this for x? What do I do? I take the square root of both sides. So if I take the square root of both sides, the power and root cancel out to leave you with x plus 2 is equal to, what do I add on that right-hand side? Plus or minus the square root of 2. Can I break down the square root of 2? Are there any perfect square factors in there? No, so I leave it alone. Now, what do I do to solve this? I'm going to subtract 2. And I have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2. That is solved. But I'm going to be super honest with you. The x-intercept is a point on the graph. When you plot points, you're plotting ordered pairs. Would you agree with me? So I want you to write this as -2 plus the square root of 2, comma 0, because that's a calculation. And -2 minus the square root of 2, comma 0, which is the second x-intercept. Why do I have two x-intercepts here? Because my exponent of highest degree is 2, which means I should have 2 x-intercepts. Do we all understand that? If it was degree 3, I should have 3 x-intercepts. If it was degree 5, I should have 5 x-intercepts. Do we all understand that? Perfect. Again, let's do it all over again with a different problem. Yep. I told you this Friday. I did not. It's involved. We're going to remain positive, and we're going to continue with the process. So, step 1, what do? I need my constant term over to the other side. Is everybody doing this with me? So, x squared plus 6x is equal to 3. Now what? I need to check my a value. What is my a value currently? 1. Is that what we want it to be? Yes. So then step 3, sidebar. So I need to come over here and I need to do my sidebar. So if I'm doing my sidebar, that is b divided by 2 squared. What is b divided by 2 is? Squared is? Now what do I do with that 9? Because that's what we learned yesterday, which is b divided by 2. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Does everybody see that? Yes? The next step is we need to rewrite this. And yesterday we learned that it was going to be the x with the b sign, and then it was the b divided by 2 calculation. So what I told you yesterday, it was going to be this, this, and your b over 2 every time. So I have x, the plus, and then 3 squared is equal to 12. It is x plus or minus, whatever b was. B is plus in this case. If it was minus, you have minus. And then b divided by 2. It's exactly like the 7 through 16 was in yesterday's homework. Okay? Now, I need to go ahead and solve this for x. So this is where we're going to do the top of yesterday's homework, which was 1 through 6. And we're going to take the square root of both sides. So that gives me x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus. Why? Because I took the square root. And what question do I ask myself whenever I'm completing this? What are factors of 12 that are perfect squares? And I want the biggest perfect square. 4 times 3. And what is the square root of 4? So this is x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. Now what? I'm going to subtract 3. X is equal to -3 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. Am I liking the way that's written? No. So how do I rewrite this the way I want you to write this? Comma 0, and what's the second one? Very good. Do we see that there are 2 roots there? Okay, we've done 2 of the easy problems. When I say easy, I mean that they have a coefficient of 1 as your a value. Now let's do a problem where your coefficient is not 1. So here we go. So now, step 1. It is already done. My constant term's already over the other side. Step 2, check your a value. My a value is a 2. Do I want it to be 2? I need it to be a 1. So in order for it to be a 1, GCF concept, which means I am going to do division. 2 divided by 2 is 1x squared. 16 divided by 2 is 8x equals 22. Biggest mistake is my students continue across the equal sign. Do not continue pulling it across the equal sign. Am I clear? So you do it only on the side with the x's. Okay. You could, but what I'm gearing you up for is to find the vertex form. And the vertex form, you have to keep that too, because that is your stretch. And you're going to have to know that for later on. Good question. Okay? All right, so the next thing is I want you to complete the square on this. So how do I complete the square? I go and I do number 3, which is your sidebar. So if I'm doing my sidebar, that means I'm going to take b and divide it by 2, and that squares it. So what is my b? 8 divided by 2 is? Squared is? Now where am I going to add that 16 at? To both sides where? I'm going to add it inside the parentheses here. So with that thought process, what did I actually add on the left-hand side? Why did I add 32? Okay, be very careful. The 16 is inside the parentheses, and this 2 is attached to it by multiplication. So I didn't just add 16. I added 2 times 16. Do we all understand that? So in your notes here, where I wrote this right here, I put a times b divided by 2 squared. Do you understand where that came from now? Yes? Do we all understand why I said a times b divided by 2 squared? Okay? Because that's what we are officially doing. I added 2 as my a, and 16, it comes from the b divided by 2 squared. Okay? So now, I am going to drop down the 2, and what do these 3 terms turn into? X plus 4 quantity squared. 2 times 16 is 32, and what is 32 plus 22? 54. Now, what is your goal? What is your goal? What did the directions say to do? To find the x-intercept. So I have to solve for x. So what do? Divide by 2. Now, Logan wanted to divide by 2 a long time ago. And he's not wrong in wanting to divide by 2, but depending upon what the directions ask for, depends upon what you should do. You should always keep your eyes open and listen to the whole period. Okay? So, I took 2 times 16, which is 32, 32, and 22 is 54. I added 22 and 32. Okay, now I'm solving for x, so what do? Take the square root of both sides. So if I take the square root of both sides, power and root cancel out. I'm left with x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus. Why 9 times 3, Brooklyn? Because I'm looking for the highest perfect square within 27, and that is 9. So the square root of 9 is? So I have x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 3 square roots of 3. Subtract the 4. Do I like that? Yeah. It's correct, but do I like the way it's written? Because I'm looking for an x-intercept, which is an ordered pair. So my first ordered pair is -4 plus 3 square roots of 3, comma 0. Why the 0? Because it's an x-intercept and there is no height for y. And then -4 minus 3 square roots of 3, comma 0. John. Because the square root of 3 is kind of like a variable. It's not a like term to 4. You with me? So you can only add square roots with square roots. Okay? And you can only add square root of 2 with the square root of 2, and the square root of 3 with the square root of 3. You with me? Good question. All right, are we understanding this? It's hard. How would That's good. Let's not, nope, don't say the words. Don't poke the bear. Okay, now let's try it with nasty numbers, which are fractions. The process does not change. So this is why everybody has a calculator, yes? Step one, your goal is to find the x-intercept, so what do? Is the constant over on the other side? Step two, check your a value. My a value is 3. Do I like my a value being 3? No, so I'm going to do division. 3 divided by 3 is x squared. What is 4 divided by 3? Negative 4/3. Can't do anything with it. Is equal to 2. Correct? Okay, so now, next. I need to go straight to my sidebar. My sidebar allows me to take my b and divide it by 2 and square it. So that's 4/3 divided by 2. Do not freak out. Nope, it doesn't matter because if you're gonna square it eventually. What happens when you square a negative? So it doesn't matter, does it? So you're gonna simply go over to your calculator. And we're gonna get a calculator page. We're going to type 4 divided by 3 divided by 2. Do you see how I typed it in there? And hit enter. What's it give you? Super easy. We are not stressing about the ugly numbers. So what? Sometimes we have ugly numbers. Then what do? You square it, and what does that give you? What does that give you? 4/9. Now, where am I going to add that 4/9 to? Both sides where? Inside the parentheses. 3 parentheses x squared minus 4/3 x plus 4/9 is equal to 2 plus, what am I adding now on the right-hand side? A, which is 3, times 4/9. Do we see that? Yes? A times or b divided by 2 squared. Okay. Now, I'm going to take the 3 and pull it down. And I'm going to take those 3 terms, what am I going to do with it? Write it as a perfect square binomial. So what is that? X minus 2/3 squared is equal to. Now, do not freak out about this. Type it in exactly the way you see it in your calculator. 2 plus 3 times 4 divided by 9. Bam, what's it give you? 10/3. We are typing it in exactly like you see it. Now, what am I wanting to do? My goal is to do what? To solve for x. So divide both sides by 3. So these 3's cancel. I'm left with x over minus 2/3 squared is equal to. Come back over to your calculator. And what am I going to do with that answer? Divided by 3 and hit enter. And what's that give you? 10/9. Totally fine. Now what? Take the square root of both the top and the bottom of the fraction, just like we did yesterday on that 5/3 problem. Yes? So this is going to give you x minus 2/3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. Why? Because the square root of 10 has no perfect squares in it. And what is the square root of 9? 3. Now what do you notice about these two lovely denominators? They're going to be the same. So whenever I add this 2/3 over, I can write that as the same denominator. X equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 10 all over 3. That is as ugly as this gets. I repeat, that is as ugly as it gets. And I will tell you that this was a homework. Now, You need to go ahead and write these as x-intercepts. 2 plus the square root of 10 over 3 comma 0, and 2 minus the square root of 10 over 3 comma 0. Those are your x-intercepts. Okay, that is as hard as the concepts get today. Now I'm going to introduce to you one more concept that is easier than this. Okay? Easier. Way easier.
Is it like last time?
No. Now, I'm going to skip the next example, and we're going to go to the next one, which is x squared minus 4x minus 6. Okay? So, here's what we need to do. Our goal is to find the vertex form. What is the vertex form? That is y equals a parenthesis x minus h squared plus k, and the vertex, which is hk, of the following. That's your goal. Yep, up, down, left, right, stretch, compress, reflect. Up, down, left, right, stretch, compress, reflect. Remember those words? Okay. First thing you're going to do is we're going to replace y with 0. Here's some steps over here. We're going to replace y with 0. So 0 goes right here. The second step you're going to do is you're going to follow completing the square steps. So if I'm following by completing the square steps, that means I have to what? Take your constant term over. So that gives me 6 is equal to x squared plus 4x. Correct? Then I need to check my a value. Is my a value 1? That makes me happy because it's a lot less work, right? Then I need to do my sidebar. So I need to do sidebar over here, meaning I'm going to have b divided by 2. B is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. Squared gives you, what am I going to do with that 4 now? I'm going to add it to both sides of the equation. What's 4 plus 6? What did these 3 terms turn into? The perfect square, what is it? X plus 2 squared. We're almost done, folks, because now we've rewritten it, and now we're going to bring our constant term on the same side as the x. So I'm going to bring that 10 back over by subtracting 10. 0 is equal to x plus 2 squared minus 10. And then the last step is to replace 0 back with y. This is your vertex form. Up, down, left, right, stretch, compress, reflect. What's happening to this thing? Left 2, down 10, so that implies my vertex is what ordered pair? -2, -10. Done. Make sense? See, I told you I saved the easy part for last. Yep. And completing the square. Because the hard part is hard. I didn't even know. Last problem, and I think you want me to do this one. You ready? Okay, step 1. Replace y with 0. Step 2. Follow the complete the square step. So what's that mean? Put that constant term over. 1 is equal to 2x squared minus 6x. Check your leading coefficient, which is your a value. What is it? A 2. I have to pull that out by doing what operation? Division. 2 divided by 2 is a 1x squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3x. Then what? Sidebar. So if I'm doing sidebar, I'm going to have b divided by 2 squared, which is going to be 3 divided by 2 squared gives me 9 over 4. Where does that go? added on both sides, but inside of my parenthesis, which means what am I actually adding on the left-hand side? 2 times 9 over 4. You are simply going to go back to your calculator and let it do the math for you. 2 times 9 divided by 4 plus 1. And what's that give you? 11 over 2. So this gives you 11 over 2 is equal to 2. And what do these 3 terms turn into? X minus 3 over 2 squared. Am I done? What do I do? I have to take that 11 over 2 over to the other side. So I have 0 is equal to 2 parentheses x minus 3 over 2 squared minus 11 over 2. And what do I do? You have to wait a second. Put your y back in there. So y equals 2 parentheses x minus 3 over 2 squared minus 11 over 2. What is happening to this function? It's stretched by 2. Right, 3 over 2. Down 11 over 2. So my vertex is what? Positive 3 over 2, negative 11 over 2. Here's your homework. Listen up, you have 6 problems where you're finding the x-intercept. You have 4 problems where you are finding the vertex and the vertex form. Am I clear on that? So you have 10 problems for homework. Tomorrow when you come in here, you will potentially have another 10 problems. Got it? Tonight's homework is 4-6 worksheet 2.